one of the biggest things for the media, like to get like views and stuff like that, is fear mongering. Like the public thrive off that.
Clickbait.
Yeah, clickbait. All that sort of stuff. Like that's how a lot of them get their views.
That's how they make money.
Yeah, definitely.
And
definitely.
like, I don't know, in a capitalist society, money is always going to be the priority. And so there's always going to be sacrificial victims, whether it's drug users, whether it's other marginalised populations of people. And, you know, the more marginalised you are as a person by society, you know, drug use can be just one layer of a bunch of other different, like, identities that are oppressed in different ways, right?
Yeah, definitely. And like it's like they have like sort of different flavours of the month with like different drugs and stuff like that. I mean, with the medically supervised injecting rooms in Richmond, all the like all the hate and everything towards and stigmatisation towards people who inject drugs around that and stuffing up Richmond and this and that. Well, I mean, I worked in Richmond, for a couple of years as a peer worker, and just next to the medically supervised injection rooms, you wouldn't even know it's there, and unless someone showed you, and as well all this the media shows all these photos in the media about needles in the street and that. In the 2 years that I worked in Richmond next to the injecting room, I only saw 2 syringes, and that was it. And they have teams that pick that up as well. And there's all this stuff about it ruining businesses and stuff like that.
Has anyone been down? Is it Victoria Street in Richmond on a Saturday night?
Yeah.
And the businesses are not struggling.
No, not at all. Well, the cafe that I used to get my coffee from at work. That's just in between my building and the injecting rooms. Well, that's actually been doing so well that they've actually bought a second cafe, and just near Burke Street, where it's one of the proposed sites for the injecting rooms in the Melbourne CBD. But I mean, you see it happening.
I don't know if it is actually a proposed site.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure it's only the media who have proposed that.
Yeah.
I'm just going to go and check something quickly because we may get the multi-screen thing happening.
Yeah.
I'm just going to pass the phone to Rhett to film.
To multitask.
It goes...
Definitely ask questions. They've got some questions in the chat.
Oh.
It goes so deep. It's not just with injecting drugs. It's happening with vaping now as well. All the vaping, all this fear-mongering about... it being targeted toward kids and stuff like that. And we're really going the wrong way about things. They're pushing, the war on drugs has never had any benefit. Like the war on drugs was failed before it began, and they're still using that approach with a number of other things.
Sorry, totally interrupted you.
Yeah.
It's very DIY down here at HRVic.
Easy going.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I interrupted you. And
No,
I had
you're
nothing to say anyway.
Yeah, I was just saying, it happened so many different things. Like they're using, I just see like the fear mongering around, whether it be the injector room, and they're doing the same thing like with vaping, and also like I've noticed, they're trying to have the same approach with the war on drugs on vaping, and like they're doing it with cigarettes, like jacking them up through the roof, and things are going underground and just making it more dangerous. It's the iron law of prohibition.
Right. I mean, Chop's been available since I started smoking when I was a teenager, right? But only recently have the Chop wars been going on. Like tobacconists being firebombed every weekend. That's only because there is like a more competitive market for tobacco. Because legal tobacco is so much harder to obtain now. It's fucking ridiculous how much it costs when people are still going to smoke.
Yeah, I mean, all that happens when you restrict access to these sorts of things, whether it be any drug, it just causes more harms. It's called more harms.
Absolutely, like alcohol prohibition.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like the iron law of prohibition, like, and that's how
That's where that
moonshine
comes from,
popped up.
So many deaths.
Yeah.
Or even just like, you know, people having to live with disabilities like blindness caused by dodgy moonshine and shit like that.
Yep. And I mean, like, as well, like,
and I guess those drugs get stronger as well. Like now we're seeing it's stuff like our synthetic opioids poisoning the illicit drug market.
Yep.
It wasn't dissimilar under alcohol prohibition, right? Because more potent stuff is easier to transport and get across borders illegally. So when alcohol was illegal, we didn't see that here in so-called Australia, but other parts of the world did. People weren't producing beer to move across the borders because they were that's very low alcohol content moonshine, and your liquors is what people were producing. And fancy that.
Well,
more harm, more death.
I mean, like, I used to work in the mines and stuff like that, and some of the camps were dry camps. So a lot of us would brew moonshine to be able to smuggle it in easier. But like you said over the years, like, I mean, like the prohibition around like opium, like, which was like purely like racist thing.
Oh, yes, absolutely. It all has racist.
Heroin. And then like tighter prohibition around that, and then things coming out like the fentanyl and nitazines, but also like in saying this, like I don't I'm not saying this to stigmatise anyone that takes nitazines or fentanyl, or they work for some people, but it's just that
they're really nice feeling drugs actually,
really nice.
And they're very beneficial drugs in circumstances as well. Like fentanyl has been around since the 60s.
Yeah, exactly.
It's only now that we're hearing about it as an issue because of the way it's gotten into the illicit drug supply, and people you can control the harms in a much more better way.
And this is why we need a legal, like regulated safe supply as well.
Totally.
We're moving on this war on drugs.
Was there a question?
Here, guys. It's from a lovely person called Ree that I think we might know. But anyway, the question is,
What's that,
what do
Ree?
you guys think about the changes happening in ACT and likely Queensland? Is it good enough?
It's a great step forward.
Yeah.
It's not good enough though. I mean, come on, 1.5 grams?
Yeah, I know the weights and stuff, like,
they're just arbitrary numbers, right?
Yeah,
the people who make these laws obviously don't really have a realistic idea of what drug use looks like.
well, I mean,
for people.
obviously, and they didn't like consult with any of the experts, or
Or if they did, it was just a box ticking exercise.
Yeah. I mean, they didn't like consult with like the community, like the people who drugs community, or like any of the expert like organisations, like harm reduction organisations, the drug user organisations. I think they really should have checked in with them, because the weights are just all over the place. I think it's really, like, it's a tiny step in the right direction, but it was, they could have done so much better.
And I mean, there's enough examples from all around the world now, and there's enough evidence out there to, I don't know, they could have done better.
Oh.
Like, fucking come on, guys.
Yeah, I know. It's very frustrating. I mean, yeah, when they were first doing the trial and everything, like, wait for the LSD. I weighed an undosed tab of LSD, and it was over the weight. And like as well.
What is the weight for that? Like 0.04 grams?
Yeah,
or
it's something like so tiny. And I mean, yeah, like as well with mushrooms and that, like, yeah, that's like be really, really tiny dose for me. Like,
And something like mushrooms as well, like the potency of mushrooms variables, like varies dramatically.
Oh, exactly.
You know,
exactly.
like
Different
they're
strains and
wild
stuff
mushrooms.
like that. Yeah.
If you're picking them in the wild, you know, you don't know how potent one mushroom is from the next.
One of the issues as well, like with all these weights, is that whenever I've sort of been pulled up for possession of drugs or something in the past, they've weighed the bag or with it, like included that in the weight and stuff like that as well. So. Yeah.
And I mean, like, people, I guess maybe the cops don't realise how much a baggie weighs. It can weigh more than the drugs in the baggie, depending on what you're buying.
Yeah.
And also, like the whole weight thing is actually super classist as well, you know, because it maybe assumes that somebody goes out to buy their drugs every day or something, which is like I guess, like, if you want to avoid getting a criminal conviction, then you've got to keep under 1.5 grams of your drug. Say, let's, for simplicity's sake, we're talking about I only use methamphetamine. So I've got to go out every day and get my 1.5 grams of methamphetamine, which in the long run is going to cost me so much more than if I can buy in bulk. If I can buy Able or whatever, that's going to cost me considerably less.
Exactly. I mean, like, sort of, back in the day, like, I was using, like, half a ball of meth a day, and, like, so 1.5 is, like, I'd have to be going out, like, a couple of times a day. And, like, so you get, like, I was using that, like, I had to buy in bulk. Like, I mean, harm reduction is just, it's not just about health, like, it's, like, I believe it's about, like, reducing harms financially that can impact you in other ways, like criminally,
even just, like, you know, being out in the street and scoring in unsafe circumstances as well. Not everybody has, like, a safe way to score either. So, you know, you have to dodge the cops. You know, 2, maybe your dealer goes AWOL. You have to get off somebody who's not as trustworthy. Their gear isn't as reliable or something like that. Or you just have to go down the street and find something.
And that, that's always, like, with when I've sort of bought in bulk and that, like, it's given me time to also shop around for other quality, like, drugs, so I'm not just, like, going, like, from small amount. Like, I have that sitting there, and I can actually see what is out there and what's good, and, like, I can pick what is the sort of safest. And
also, like, I think another thing with the current sort of decrim models that are being followed around the world, and this goes for places like Portugal as well, which are very much held up on a pedestal, is that it's still at police discretion. And the police, they're not targeting rich white people in the fancy part of town, are they?
No, not at all.
They're targeting people of colour, they're targeting Indigenous people, they're targeting poor people.
And I mean, like, it's unfortunately, like, people with lower incomes and that will have to use the illicit drug market more, because and I'm not saying that drug use goes all the way up, like the white picket fence and people this and that.
Absolutely.
But like you find that people with a bit more money have
a bit more power,
access
more
to
resources,
safer supply, like medically legal drugs and stuff like that.
Totally.
As well.
Doctors believe them more, you know.
So the whole system isn't, like, sort of set up to really support.
not yet muddied by time. See how they move together in groups and play with abandon. Coming alive at night, the dance-wise owl watches over the flock, waiting to be called upon for their sage wisdom. The cheeky kookaburra leads the flock through their mating rituals on the dance floor, cackling and using humour in every birdsong. By simply looking at these wonderful creatures, one might be inclined to notice the many differences. But do not be fooled. They travel as one. Some are quiet and reserved. Some are messy and playful, while others prefer a slower pace. Their choices of sustenance vary greatly, which can create tensions between the alpha birds. But the one crucial fact is that birds of a feather flock together. These are birds who have shunned the pecking order and have been brought together as a diverse flock. It's the base that attracts them. Soft feathers don't make a cruel bird kind. Understanding and accepting others reduces the ornament of shame that's too often worn by the young. It's what's underneath the feathers that counts most.
There have been many occasions in which I've wanted to go to a doof or a party with friends, and I've seen statements from the organisers to the effect of GHB is unwelcome at this party. Messaging like this only serves to stigmatise and exclude people who use certain substances. It feeds into stereotypes and misunderstandings about those drugs too. As someone who uses GHB, I experience this exclusion regularly. It is my belief that people stigmatise this drug because they've heard or seen the effects of irresponsible use. As people who use drugs, we're unified in the sense that the shame and judgment given by our society says that all drugs are bad. And yet in our subculture, we then choose to shame people for choosing to do drugs that we personally don't agree with. I've since formed the habit of completely removing myself from the party to have a dose, just in order to ensure that I'm safe from judgment and exclusion. I would prefer to be able to share my use with someone for safety, but I don't always feel like I can do that. I think these ideas only hurt our community and create divide where we need unity.
To understand how a health disturbance occurs, it's important to look through a biopsychosocial lens. In 1984, American psychoanalyst and psychiatrist Norman Zinberg described these factors in his book, Drug, Set and Setting. According to him, there are three key factors that determine the experience or well-being of the individual. The first is the drug, so what drug are they using? How legal is it, or how stigmatized is this drug? Are there other drugs being used in conjunction with it? How often do they use it? What's the dosage? What is the quality of the drug? And how is it used? The set refers to a set of factors within a person, so their general health, their state of mind and being, their hydration and hunger, which is a big one, their culture, their history, their experience with a drug and their understanding of that drug, and also their motivation for use. And the setting refers to external factors that can affect a person, so the location of the experience or the intensity of the stimuli and whether they can control it or not, the social group that the person is with, temperature, humidity, their affinity with the location, and also whether or not there is law enforcement present. If we look through this biopsychosocial lens, then we can look at all the factors that might affect an individual, while also understanding that the very same drug in the very same dose might affect two people entirely differently.
today is all about. We're running into stuff as we do this video intro. Basically what Hey, welcome to Harm Reduction Victoria, Victoria's peak drug user organisation. And today just happens to be the 1st of November, which is International Drug Users Day. And basically what today is all about, we're running into stuff as we do this video intro. Basically what IDUD's all about is remembering that often we hear about drug use, we hear stats, we hear news stories, we hear policing activity, but first and foremost, drugs are always about people. So when people talk about, you know, the war on drugs, what we're talking about is the war on people who use drugs. When we talk about policies that are tough on drugs, what we're talking about is being tough on people who use drugs. Quite often these are the most marginalised people in our community, and International Drug Users Day is an opportunity to remember that. It's a day to celebrate the achievements of people who use drugs, and in Australia we've got heaps to be proud of. So, you know, during the HIV epidemic, we were able to keep the prevalence of HIV amongst people who use drugs between 1 and 2%. We've also been able to sort of successfully advocate for governments to subsidise life-saving hepatitis C treatment, despite how exorbitant the big pharmaceutical companies decide the price will be. But it's listening to the people on the ground that's allowed us to sort of implement those life-saving policies. And today we'll, to celebrate IDUD, Harm Reduction Victoria is going to be doing this little live stream that we'll hear about a lot of the work, the achievements, the efforts, the stuff that our community is striving for. But at its core, all of the stuff we'll be broadcasting today will be the voices of the people who use drugs. So strap yourself in and remember, happy IDUD.
Hello? Hi? Hi? Who's there? Four people. Our 4 YouTube watchers, thanks for joining us on International Drug Users Day. What is happening, HRVic Oz? What
what would you like to do? If you would like, we can connect a phone and you can give us a tour around the HRVic offices. We have some roving mics around here. I just need some people in this area working cooperatively. So I guess the plan with this space is that we will get used to our equipment, and then we'll be able to start bringing more talks, discussions, forums, Q&A panels, bring in experts, bring in community, and mingle it all together and get people to chat. Hello, Sam? 2 viewers. Hello. What would you like to do? Because I have a run sheet, but don't know. And there's a camera downstairs. We could use that if you wanted. What else? Got some. What's this one? We've got a few bits and pieces. People have. It's been uploading content to the last moment, but let's have a look. This is something from our policy wonk, Mr. Kent, Mr. Nick Kent. So I'm gonna pass that over. Let's have a look.
Reduction Victoria.
Yep. So I work as the policy and campaigns lead at Harm Reduction Victoria.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And so what does that work involve generally?
So I guess a lot of different things. I guess for context, like the harm reduction organisations haven't often been funded to be able to do policy advocacy, and we're in a situation where we, like HRVic, does have that opportunity at the moment in Victoria. So I'm very privileged to be helping set up a bit more of a kind of coordinated advocacy like program within HRVic that kind of supports the staff and the health service programs that we run to be able to do a bit more advocacy alongside the work that they do.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What a really involved job. Now, just a little bit of a vox pop that we're doing with every staff member that we interview here for IDAD, and that's like talking about the human rights of people who use drugs. What do human rights of people who use drugs mean to you?
Oh wow, putting me on the spot. These are big questions, but also simple questions. I mean, let's keep it like that. Yeah, I think, well, everyone deserves to be treated with respect. Everyone deserves to be treated with dignity. Everyone deserves rights to healthcare unimpeded by anything else. And I would argue that humans who want to have a right to experience bodily autonomy and altered states of consciousness. So I guess there are all different things going on for people who use drugs that we're sort of systematically denied as well. So.
Yeah, now a campaign that you led earlier in the year was the harm reduction demandments, 7 demandments campaign. Do you want to we are on the couch for IDAD here at Harm Reduction Victoria, and I'm here with Nick Kent. Hello, Nick.
Hey, Christian.
For people who don't know Nick, do you want to introduce, what do you do here at Harm Reduction Victoria?
Yep. So I work as the policy and campaigns lead at Harm Reduction Victoria.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And so what does that work involve generally?
So I guess a lot of different things. I guess for context, like the harm reduction organisations haven't often been funded to be able to do policy advocacy, and we're in a situation where we, like HRVic, does have that opportunity at the moment in Victoria. So I'm very privileged to be helping set up a bit more of a kind of coordinated advocacy like program within HRVic that kind of supports the staff and the health service programs that we run to be able to do a bit more advocacy alongside the work that they do.
Awesome.
Yeah.
a really involved job. Now, just a little bit of a vox pop that we're doing with every staff member that we interview here for IDAD, and that's like talking about the human rights of people who use drugs. What do the human rights of people who use drugs mean to you?
Oh wow, putting me on the spot. These are big questions, but also simple questions. I mean, let's keep it like that. Yeah, I think, well, everyone deserves to be treated with respect. Everyone deserves to be treated with dignity. Everyone deserves rights to healthcare unimpeded by anything else. And I would argue that humans who want to have a right to experience.
Yeah, cool. All right, I can put you on.
Okay, can you set Carol's up as well? Do you want to do a demo of the reagent test?
Do you have a reagent test for me?
We do. We don't.
So, one thing I did find, I didn't bring it along, but I have a very old reagent kit, they are noxious chemicals. You do want to store them properly, because mine's got all sorts of corrosion going on around the bottles, and that's probably only a year of storage. So do store them properly in a cold area. Back of the fridge is a good place.
And glass bottles I think makes a difference to glass or plastic.
If you hold your camera sideways, it should give us a like.
Oh.
Yeah, that's the one. And we'll flip. Yay! There you go.
Oh, wide angle. Okay. I'm just thinking we could just go through the motion so people know exactly what to.
All right, let's go find.
And you can talk while you do it about what the pros and cons are of the reagent test, since we're stuck in a state that refuses to
what is reagent
acknowledge
testing
drug
anyway?
checking.
What is reagent testing?
Well, let's do that. Reagent.
Well, Jane.
I don't know.
Reagent testing. I'm just going to give.
Is that going to tell us how strong the drugs are?
Or how much drugs is in the drug?
Strength is not something we can get from reagent testing. Hey, I've got a better microphone for you. Have you got one plugged in? Or is that
I'm going to run out of batteries.
Oh, this is ad hoc to the nth degree. If you plug in.
I don't have a plug-in hole.
That one.
I don't have a plug-in hole.
Oh, because it's an Apple, right? Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, where do you want to do this?
So maybe,
downstairs?
Let's go downstairs in the light. Blinded by the light. Like a what? Oh, look at us on screens.
Kitchen area?
Yeah, well, no, we're going to do it at a table. Maybe that little table? Or on the bench in there. Just a quick... We've got some new substance brochures in now, too. So if anybody's been waiting for those. We've got some new substance...
I need a microphone.
Oh, okay. I gotta plug my phone in because it's gonna die. We need to be near a plug because I'm gonna die.
Well, we've got this camera too if you want to use that.
This is fine as well.
Well, yeah.
So what are you on, Instagram or?
I'm on YouTube, but I'm on the Ninja. We'll attach you to it. But if you push that, join
that one?
The camera into. I don't know what that is. I didn't have that many options. Let's sit at the table, shall we? It's not going to run out of power. And I'm sure you're getting tired of walk around in circles. I'm sure I'm talking to myself anyway, which is quite normal for me. You can ask any of my colleagues. Dun, 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 dun.
So we got some.
Excellent.
Some glass vials. So reagent testing, it's likely that you did a kind of a colorimetric test, which is what a reagent test is in high school, around year 9, 10.
What does that mean in layman's terms?
So colorimetric, yep, I'll explain it. So a colorimetric test means that the chemical, when you add the reagent, another chemical, to the chemical that you're testing, there's a color change, and the color changes are fairly unique depending on what the substance is. Okay. So there are various charts, and we can display one in a little bit, that catalog all the different sort of color changes that you're looking for. But that's also, I guess, one of the limitations of reagent test. I can't get that out. It's a color change, so you need to be using your eyes, and you need to have bright lighting, so even brighter than what we've got here.
Yeah, we can turn on some more lighting.
Actually, there's a, hey, Cara, in there, there's some lamps, and if we
can turn these on.
Oh yeah, we could do that too.
Yeah.
Cool, thank you. Hey, yeah. Okay, what do we got? So we've got a marquee and a mandolin. So these are two of the reagents. These are just the names, I suspect, names of the chemists who first discovered these reagents. So a reagent is, as I said before, it's a chemical that has a vast variety of color changes depending on the chemical that it's mixed with, and a lot of those will change specifically for different drugs, and we can check that in a chart. Now, finding adulterants, if it's a small amount, you're unlikely to find what the adulterant is, because it's not that sensitive. You're not going to get something like purity, and you could have a misread, and you've got to be careful to look after these kits as well. Like I said, mine's corroding. These ones are not, so although they probably are old, because they do only last for a while. In fact, you can see a little bit of the corrosion around there. Sort of the kind of thing you see on a battery if you've left it in for too long.
Yeah, when even my glass ones, they are years old, but I left them. They were in the fridge on the side, so all the residue had sunk like a filthy Cooper's beer.
So before we test, so what you want to do, you only need a small sample of whatever the substance is that you want to test.
How small is small? Because a lot of people freak out that they're going to have to buy a bag.
Let's get a Panadol or something. Hang on.
Basically sacrifice a whole bag of gear. In the instructions of a lot of them, they'll say a pinpoint's worth of, powder. Like a drawing pin that you use for sewing. So they have tiny little heads on them. It's about the size of that. That is about the size of that. That much there would even do. So a tiny little, look at the size of my finger compared to that. Like, that's literally how much you could use, and that's how much I've seen them say on the packet you need a pinhead's worth. So that would be enough.
Okay,
Nick's got a Panadol here. Let's get rid of these fucking manky
of that. You want to be doing this ideally on a ceramic plate or otherwise, which I don't have access to right now, and we're only doing this with ibuprofen, so we're going to be a little rough and crush our sample. And when I say a small amount, you need a little grabby thing.
Use the
that'll do.
It up.
So small amount, even that's plenty.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot. Yeah. So you could do it with less. So we put our sample in there, and then each of these tests, marquee, mandolin, etc., have different color reactions. So sometimes it's good to use a couple of different reagents just to get a better indication on what might be in there, especially for some substances. So things like amphetamines are will colour change on marquee mandolin fairly similarly, but for something like LSD and for things like ketamine, or for detecting adulterants like PMA, or there's all sorts of things. You probably want to be doing multiple tests, or ideally visit a testing centre. All right, so we're going to put this in. Can you see that?
So it's more of a process of elimination rather than seeing what's positively in there. You're seeing what's not in there, really.
Yeah. So you're not. It's never a guarantee when you see the color change that is definitely going to be the thing that it is, but it's a good indicator.
So you can see the purple now once it gets white a little bit more.
So this one's actually quite dark, and I think it's because it's been sitting around a while. I have no idea what Panadol or ibuprofen is going to actually change to, but you can see there was a little bit of a reaction, a little bit of bubbling, and for most substances, if you're testing, you will have your color chart next to you, and you'll see a slight color change. One of the other things you want to watch is the reaction time, how long it takes for the color to change. And sometimes you might notice it change sort of a couple of times. Like it might start to go one color and then start to go another color. So it might start to go purpley and then it might start to turn brown. Generally, that's just because of the saturation of sample. But it can indicate, it could indicate an adulterant. It's just not a definite test, but it is better than nothing.
Yeah, it's so I know. I tested a tiny bit of cocaine, or what was supposed to be supposedly cocaine, a couple of weeks ago, and the problem I had was it was a color that was also the same color for amphetamine, for methamphetamine, and for PMA.
Orange.
Yeah, that kind of orangey yellow, and then when I did the mandolin or whatever, I did a marquee and a mandolin, because they're for looking for different things. As I think Nick said before, there's 6 different tests, probably might even be more. A Simons, an Ehrlich, mandolin, marquee. There's a Simons A and a Simons B. Lieberman.
Yep. And those are just the ones that are good for testing most common illicit substances. Reagents are used in non-illicit practices as well. Okay, let's try another one and see if we get something. Going to use some more of that.
Are these just? Oh no, there's something.
Mandolin in there. All right.
I need to know the time. I don't know what it is because my camera. What time it is? Sorry. Oh shit. Because of the phone. 17. Okay. So I have to do the naloxone at 4:30.
That one's got I think that's got slightly darker brown. So we've got more information about reagents. There's plenty of information about reagents on YouTube. We have some resources at the HRVic website, hrvic.org.au. And I might just run up now and quickly flash one of the colorimetric charts so you can have a look. Dan Safe, our friends in the US,
Canada,
and in Canada,
yeah,
as well? Yeah, okay. Have a really excellent range of reagent tests and colorimetric chart. There's a few different ones out there with these sorts of things. That's your sort of database, and different people collect sort of different data and interpret things slightly differently. So just be aware of all of these factors if you are doing a reagent test. So
ideally, testing that, drug checking would be an ideal answer for rather than reagent tests.
Well, yeah, and if you are at parties over summer, look out for the Be Heard Not Harmed campaign. Be Heard Not Harmed is supported by Harm Reduction Victoria's DanceWise program. and by Students for Sensible Drug Policy, among a few other peer organisations, and it's calling for the ability to implement drug testing. It's really not hard. The equipment, the will is there, the passion is there. It's just a matter of saying go without the potential of being arrested, and we can do that, and lives can be saved. So that's how easy it could be.
What would you say to somebody if they said that if we had drug checking, it would cause more people to take drugs? That seems to be the argument.
I just
right?
don't think that people are motivated to take a drug or not take a drug by the state of the law, at least not a significant amount. And those that are, there's probably some other issues going on there. People are solely motivated to do an action because it is illegal and not something that they have thought about. And I'd really encourage if people want to take any kind of psychoactive substance to make that choice within yourself. Don't make it because of an external pressure of some kind, whether it's a peer pressure from your friends and you don't really want to, whether it's some desire to break the law for no good reason or piss off your parents, whatever it is. Those aren't good reasons.
That's right.
I don't think. But I'm not a teenager anymore. I didn't feel like that as a teenager either. So make that choice with information. Be informed, and then you'll have a better time.
That's right.
You'll be safe.
Say KNOW to drugs. KNO. I nearly spelled smart. SMRT.
SAMRT.
So Nick's going up. He's going to put the colorimetric chart on the screen for you, and after that, we'll probably leave you here. We're going to go back to Instagram for the naloxone training. So we will see you there if anyone is here. Bye, and thank you so much for coming over and putting up with our teething issues. We will try it again soon. We will.
Yep, that's all right. I've got one in here. We're just having a quick look at a colorimetric chart right now, so I'll just blow that up a little bit. So you can see across the top marquee, mandolin, and we can see that for MDMA and MDA, both marquee and mandolin pretty much react the same. But if we see MDMA, NDEA, and methamphetamine, we're seeing slightly different color reactions. But if we also get something like a Rover test and a MEC in there, then we can start to discern differences. So it's a really, you gotta use your eyes. You gotta be careful. You gotta have bright lighting. You gotta have a good surface to do it on. Oh, by the way, wear gloves. These are corrosive chemicals, as I've mentioned a few times. I wasn't wearing gloves just then. You should wear gloves. I'm gonna go wash my hands and do what Sam said. Running up and down these stairs.
Go. Hello, YouTube. Hey. Here we go. Welcome to our live stream. I'm here with the veritable coordinator of the Dancewise program and tech man extraordinaire.
We've just been doing some drug testing here, so pardon the...
See, Nick, you are more than a drug user. You are also our tech support.
Yeah. I won't even explain what's been going on up there, but it's a learning process. This is new equipment. This is a fairly new space. We've just had a test run of the plumbing with a large crowd, and
and we didn't really pass that test.
No, it didn't pass, but like it was.
But look, this is new ground.
Good to know.
I mean, like in times gone past, if there were drug users that were taken to air, we would be like surrounded by law enforcement at this stage, trying to shut us down or sink our pirate ship.
That's true. And now we have a big building and these fancy lights. Haven't figured these things out yet either. That's another new thing to learn about.
Yeah, like not referring to off-camera elements on a live stream. Very boring for the audience.
Very boring for our audience. Well. Yeah, I was hoping that we could do some exciting things today. Almost none of them worked quite the way that I hoped.
Nick, we're doing it now.
But that's true. Well, okay, Christian, tell me about the Fuse program. What have you been up to in Fuse? In the Fuse program.
So the Fuse Initiatives is sort of a workforce development program that we here at Harm Reduction Victoria are taking part in. So we have, despite being completely made up of peer workers, we've never really had the opportunity to sort of reflect on that sort of workforce development practice, like look at the things that make that enable a workforce to happen. So things like training and like, you know, the policy infrastructure at an organisation. You know, we've just sort of stumbled our way through it, and some people do it well, some people not so well. And so that's why there's this whole sort of range of experiences amongst peer-based, like harm reduction peer workers. Because we had a Royal Commission in mental health, and there's this sort of whole new focus on lived and living experience coming into the workforce, there is a bit of money to look at things like workforce development. So what Fuse Initiatives is doing is we are sort of supporting current harm reduction peer workers who are working in mainstream health services, so in hospitals and community health services, by providing an opportunity to connect with their peers, because like when you're like the only worker of your kind in an organisation, it can feel really lonely. Your job doesn't feel super secure. You don't know where to look for like role modelling, inspiration, support, problem solving, anything, right? So we provide an opportunity for peers to connect with each other, as well as sort of like the training that enables peers to do their job as best that they can. So for regular workers, that's like looking at their like skills and expertise, but for peer workers, it's also like negotiating the workplace, you know, how to have those difficult conversations with your manager if, for example, you need to start later because you have to collect methadone every day. Like all of those sort of reasonable things that enable any other person to work, we want that for harm reduction peer workers too.
And I think the sort of concept of having peers as workers, as people that are helping to educate the community, as people working alongside experts and expertise to you know, share knowledge, it's broader than just harm reduction, and I think we're seeing that with the mental health reforms. But we're sort of coming from a model where it has been very much top down, where it's been you're told by the expert in you what you need and what you need to do with you. It's very prescriptive. It's very it's domineering in a lot of ways. And I don't think, let me be clear, that there isn't a role for expertise. There clearly is. Expertise is important to be able to find out the nuances, the small nitty-gritty things that save lives, that cure diseases and things like that. But those people aren't often your advocate. They might not take into consideration the broad nature of your well-being, your unique well-being, and take time to understand it. Often, if you've got an environment where people are in high demand, they don't have a lot of time to be able to do that. And I think it fills an interesting niche as well, because I think at the moment that niche often gets filled by people offering alternative therapies, and there's nothing wrong with that either. But the reason I think a lot of people go to those kinds of people is because they're getting quality time with another human being.
Yeah. And
I think that a peer worker can be that person that you have quality time with and are able to connect with. It's a revolution, Christian.
I suppose when people think of like the coldness of a clinical expert, what we're describing is, people who are inaccessible. So if you're an expert, you work for an academic institution, you might work for a university, you publish in all of the, most esteemed, peer-reviewed, very respected journals in the world. But the thing is, what has that got to do with the experience on the ground, where the actual risk behaviour might happen, or the harms, the potential harm is there? No academic is present during that moment. What we have to do is build, what peer workers do is kind of build, it fills in a gap in terms of expertise that sort of makes that that clinical data alive, makes it tangible, salient, relevant to community members who've never read an academic paper. But yet, what peer workers do is find all sorts of different ways to actually make that data come to life. It's it doesn't have to, you might be well published and well respected, but I kind of question what value that has if the person on the ground finds that data completely inaccessible. So I think what we do is we work in partnership with, with science, if you like, That's one set of expertise. We're a different set of expertise. We're the set of expertise that says, it's International Drug Users Day. We actually need to do something, even if it is just a live stream,
I organised in the past 4 days. I promised we had big plans. I need to stop talking back at stage.
But the thing that makes me super proud of Harm Reduction Victoria is that we're the team that will, we had completely other plans to do completely other something.
It was a whole different thing
that completely got derailed. But the thing is, what matters is what we actually do. So rather than cancel and go home and huff and puff and feel sorry for ourselves, and as imperfect as this live stream may or may not be, and I think you've done a pretty good job.
It's a scientific approach, and science is all about making errors and learning from them. So we're peer scientists, citizen scientists, peer scientists. There's a phrase in there, I'm sure.
And look, if the audience does have any complaints, years of sex worker advocacy has taught me that our response is, look, you get what you pay for. But yeah, look, Nick, we have very few opportunities to actually stop and reflect and talk about our work and what we do. I think this has been a really interesting opportunity to actually showcase a lot of the really great work that Harm Reduction Victoria, our peers, local people who use drugs in your community.
And I'm just going to come over to the camera for a moment because I want to show you, probably two people watching, but I want to show you the space that we have here. If you haven't joined us in the new harm reduction Victoria space, here is the space that we have that we will be utilising over the coming...
What do you mean this isn't a newfangled flashy TV studio?
So we've got this is a theatre. We were watching ourselves on a big screen. And we've got area here. We've got a whole bunch of seats we can set up. We can run film nights and panel nights, forum discussions and all sorts. Oh, these are the lights I was talking about. See how they change colour? Well,
audience, I must apologise. This is what happens when you give the tech person a microphone.
Now I'm over here. And,
you've got to talk about the lights. Nick, what is Dancewise up to?
What is well, actually, I probably need to go and do some things for that now because it's busy season. Party season has begun. Festivals are off, and
what festivals will you be at?
We are heading to Aura this weekend. Aura is a new festival, so interested to see how it goes. It? Smaller festival out in Western Victoria. It's at a site that we've been to before for other festivals. I don't know if the site has a name. I have a feeling it does. I get the feeling it's a old-fashioned bush stuff. It's thumping music, whether it's psytrance or progressive or there's all sorts of
like
subgenres within subgenres.
Of Rainbow.
Well, I mean, Rainbow Serpent Festival has changed its name to the Rainbow Spirit Festival. So far, they haven't announced another festival, but they are planning an event on the Australia Day weekend. Though, from my understanding, what they had said before is they're not going to do another festival on that weekend because it tends to be very, very, very hot, and the past few festivals have had issues with fire around, or sometimes flash flooding because it's Victoria. So that for me, for a decade, was the start of my year. Official start of the year, Rainbow Serpent Festival, and now it's like the years are just blurring together.
Mm-hmm. So you're going to be at Aura. Where else is Dancewise going to be?
Aura, we are the year 11s. The year 12s are just about to finish up for the year. Good luck to the no year 12s that are watching now, who will be doing their exams very soon, and then they head out to party all around the state. There's a few key locations, and we're heading to two of them. Cows.
They're unofficial schoolies.
Yeah, there's no event. People just mill around at the beach, and for those that live in Mornington Peninsula or on Phillip Island or out towards Lawn,
like Torquay,
Torquay. I personally went to Venus Bay, which was much quieter and nicer. I preferred that experience, but that's me.
Yeah.
What did you do?
I went to Torquay. It felt like different schools had different towns that they went to.
And it was like,
so our town was like Torquay for some reason. I think it's because like a lot of people had holiday homes out there that we could crash at. So it was kind of like, Schoolies was my first sort of, yay, we're going on a trip and a holiday and nothing is planned or booked. And we're just going to make it up and you get there.
A lot of liquor.
But you do end up learning. I think that was a very deep learning experience for a lot of people.
Yeah. I see those deep learning experiences happen sometimes. So we've got that. Strawberry Fields Festival is coming up. That's a big one on the map at the moment. Between sort of Strawberry and Strawberry's just over the border, so technically not a Victorian festival, but it's just on the Murray River there. So it's close. And Pitch is another one. That's not until March next year, but that's a big festival that sort of filled a niche, filled a gap that maybe Rainbow left. Although tastes have changed as well, genres shift and morph. What else? We've got an event almost every weekend over December. I'd have to go and have a look at the list, but there's a few events around the CBD. So at Flemington Racecourse.
So
and
because it is your busy period, do you have enough volunteers at the moment?
Well, so we're always looking for people to inquire and become key peer educators, KPEs, or our volunteers. And we won't be doing another intake probably until February. Right before the March rush, just because it's busy at the moment. But now is the time for people to, sign up and indicate that they'd like to join the team.
So how do people do that if they are so inclined?
dancewise.org.au or just hrvic.org.au and follow the links to the Dancewise page. It's pretty much at the top of the page. There's 3 links. One is for event inquiries. That's not you. One is to sign up for a volunteer, that would be you, and the other one must be contact form or something like that. I'd have to go check.
And what for people who are interested, what does intake involve? What does it look like?
Yeah, so it's fairly simple. We have a 6-hour team induction session that everybody must complete to become, to sort of meet the minimum requirements. That 6-hour is either run, we do Saturdays, Sundays, full 6-hour from 12 till 6, which is really not too bad with a lunch break in the middle. Sometimes we've broken it up into 2-3 hours on a Thursday, Friday night or something like that, depending on what people are sort of after. And then once you've completed that, there's a couple of online things to sign and do, and then you can start signing up for events. But you can also come along to our meetings and trainings, which we do fortnightly, and that's really important because that's where you get to know the other team members. That's where we give you a whole lot of extra training on more specific topics, and it's really essential. I think we do have some people who might only do the sort of induction training and not really come along to meetings and trainings. And I think they're just, some people are very knowledgeable and, already feel like they know about the topic, but this work is really about knowing your teammates and being able to work with those who are on shift, bounce knowledge, because you'll find that different members have different areas of expertise, let's say, areas of peer expertise, and you'll see different and unique things at different festivals, some quite challenging, some hilarious, some disgusting, some just lovely. So full gamut of experience.
For sure. I mean, and that's one of the beautiful things about being part of a peer community is we all have that stuff in common, or we all have this sort of affinity, if you like, but we all are super, super diverse. So, it's that sort of, I'm connected to lots of people, but they also can teach me something element. But dealing with that diversity, maybe people are a bit umming and ahhing that they want to volunteer because they're not sure what sort of commitment it would take. For a Dancewise volunteer, what level of commitment makes a good volunteer at a good KPE at Dancewise?
Yeah, I think people can be really minimal about it and hardly do any event. But I really think you lose contact with the team that way. You lose the up-to-date knowledge. I think trying to do 2 to 3 events is a good sort of minimum, and trying to come along to at least a few of our meetings fortnightly. So there's 20. What is that? 22, 23. Yeah, something like that. So trying to get along to a handful of them, three or four. I mean, every fortnight's great, but I know it's not always possible for people. But I think you get more out of it the more that you're able to commit, because you make friendships, you make networks, you build niches together.
Yeah,
and then we pull them apart and say, no, go and talk to the other people that you haven't been talking to. I don't do that. I just don't, when groups get into niches and then cut other people off, don't like that. But it's inevitable. But it's also something that,
you provide the hub that all niches can still draw back to.
Exactly.
So you're the great unifying force.
It's the great unifying force. And, the other thing is you get to go along to a wide variety of events and see all kinds of music that you might not have chosen to go see, and you might find yourself with new tastes of music and engaging in new subcultures that you hadn't thought of, and getting into shibari and doing rope tying on the middle of a psytrance stage at 3 a.m. Who knows?
I mean, useful. We've all met that friend. Now, shibari does involve consent. Remember, folks, keep your practice.
Yes. Yeah.
Ethical.
Well, it wouldn't be much. It wouldn't be shibari. It would be something else.
No. Let's. So, how has this year been for dance-wise?
Busy. Very busy. Lot of consolidating of changes. I think there's been a lot going on for Harm Reduction Victoria in general for all the programs. A lot of growth, a lot of consolidation of things like just how we do things, our processes, our the way that we interact. We're in this new space. A year ago, we were moving building.
Exactly.
Which is
all working from home.
Well, yeah, working from home.
Everything via Zoom. Oh wait, we were just doing
it still feels like lockdown weighs heavy in I'm sure most people's minds because it feels like we're getting further and further away from it. Things are returning to normality, and I almost think do I need to mention it? But
and do you get much support from events that festivals themselves? When
yeah. We support in terms of
them wanting you to be there.
Of course, Yeah, so not just that, but especially with the so we work closely with first aid providers, with the medical providers, and the way that I put it is that we essentially act as a buffer for alcohol and other drug issues that somebody might need to be in care, but maybe not medical care. Maybe they just want to talk a lot. Maybe they just need to snooze for a little bit. Maybe the talking and the snoozing have been combined into a nonsense pie, and that's medical need those beds free for sprained ankles, for people that are having a serious physiological condition. Well, we're super good with nonsense pie. We'll provide nonsense cream. We'll provide nonsense soup.
You are the space where people are going to talk about Black Mirror endlessly. The paramedics do not need a bed taken up by that person.
So many entertaining conversations, not all which are coherent or make sense, but I love that. I love a bit of incoherent, non-linear conversation in the middle of the night. It's a contact high.
Yeah.
to be having a conversation like that.
It must give you sort of an opportunity to become really familiar with things like trends and stuff that's going on for communities at the moment. What do you see sort of happening that's kind of new, unusual, stuff that you've had to learn about?
Ooh, I think there's no particular... No trends that I can think of in terms of what people are sort of approaching that are restricted to the post-lockdown time. A lot of them were kicking in during lockdown or just before lockdown. I feel like there's been a general uptick in ketamine popularity, cocaine popularity, certainly.
Right.
Melbourne overtook Sydney in terms of... users of cocaine.
I know.
12 months ago, which is
outrageous.
It's Australia is a lucrative market.
Sure.
You sometimes hear about the sort of recreational prices that people pay in Europe or in the US, and Australia is a lucrative market. So I guess that's part of this cycle. But so those are sort of the trends of what people are looking for. In terms of what's actually out there, there's definite trends. There's definitely just so many more novel psychoactive substances, alphabet soup drugs that people haven't heard of before. Some of them have very little human use data, so there's very little known about the risks associated with it, or what sort of things to expect. And that ranges the full full range of substances. A lot of synthetic cannabinoids in really obscure categories. A lot of benzodiazepine, like obscure benzos that are not. Some of them we see every now and then pills that look like a Valium or look like a medication, but they're not. It's been pressed somewhere. It could be a different benzo, and we've what other? There's a lot of adulterants around. Hence the importance of pursuing and eventually reaching a point where we can do some high quality drug testing and offer that to people so that they can hopefully avoid some of these adulterants. But I mean, to me, this is we're almost it's inside out. This is a consumer product. We know this. Prohibition never stopped consumption of drugs. It never will. It's a fruitless goal. I don't understand why continue? Why keep doing it? These are consumer products. Every other consumer product has regulatory standards from manufacturing all the way through to retail. And that process is how we keep people safe. It's how we keep people... it creates a lot of jobs too. It builds a whole economy. It builds skill sets. Drug testing is a small step in the right direction. Just regulate the market and... problem solved.
Yeah, it's always been sort of a interesting conundrum for harm reduction, like how to look at novel psychoactive substances or synthetics, because like on one hand, like their emergence is very much connected to the fact that prohibition of like non-novel like traditional psychoactive substances. So, like, part of me sort of says, well, if we sort of decriminalised, decriminalised drugs in the first instance, these novel psychoactives probably would not have emerged. But, like, I can't say that for sure.
Well,
how do you see it?
Okay, there are two sides to this, because there is always a group of people. One of the words that gets floated around is the sort of frontier psychonauts, those who are looking for novel chemicals specifically. They are pursuing those. They're interested in novel experiences. They've got a copy of Alex Shulgin's PCAL. They're reading through it. They're keeping notes. These are guinea pigs. These are people willingly guinea pigging themselves, usually people who are nerds about this and are going to be meticulous in their approach. That group, I think, will just always exist. The reason why we saw the explosion of synthetic cannabinoids in Australia, well, the first place that we saw them taking off was in Western Australia, around the mining FIFO, the fly-in, fly-out communities, because there's extensive drug testing that's conducted. Some of the most stringent drug testing conducted on mine sites, obviously operating the heaviest of machinery on these sites, but also a stressful environment, an environment where people are away from friends, family for extended periods of time, and getting a lot of money. And people were looking for alternatives that are not going to lose them their job. So some of the synthetic cannabinoids, the original series, were being brought in the first place. And Chem Centre over in WA, it's the only, as far as I know, it's the only statutory body in Australia that is a forensic laboratory. and it's partly because of the mining industry in WA. They were the first to identify and then recommend to the Western Australian government to start banning these things, and that started a bit of a cat and mouse race where the chemists went and found something that wasn't listed, made that, sold that until it gets listed, so on and so forth, until some really broad and, in my opinion, definitions that completely undermine this idea that prohibition makes sense at all. Should be clear, because it's not about health, it's not about safety. Look at the legislation, look at the way that it's introduced, look at the discussions that happen at the time. There is an air of concern, but in terms of a factual basis for these laws, it's non-existent. It's driven by tabloids, it's driven by sensationalism.
Absolutely, and one of the unfortunate outcomes of that are things like people not having access to the right information to prevent things like overdose. We're going to an overdose workshop later this afternoon.
Yeah, well, actually, I wonder what the others are doing. Should we go find out what the others are doing?
Let's do that right now. Otherwise, we're going to talk about this forever because, you know us.
It's interesting. I wonder if this is still going or if something broke.
Sam has probably cut us off like 20 minutes ago.